Have you guys ever had this situation where your brain keeps coming to a conclusion that cannot be true because it's absurd? You can never believe it. Well, if you've been through this very specific situation, or something close to it, I need your help. I'm stuck in a position where I don't know whether to go left or right, and both options seem like a bad move. I'm actually suspecting my wife of something that cannot be true, and no, it's not cheating. I understand that cheating is a big theme here, and most of the posts have it, but it's probably not the case for me, or hopefully not. I'm not sure what's going on at all, so let me explain what's happening. I'm Ash, and I've been happily married to my wife Autumn for several years. She has her problems, but she's a great wife and keeps me very happy. And I try to do the same for her too. I also work a great job. The only downside is that I have to travel a lot. But I earn very well, so it's an easy give and take, right? Well, not for my wife. That's because she's very suspicious and paranoid. But she wasn't like that when we first started dating. I first met Autumn during college and we quickly became close friends. She was the only person, other than my childhood best friend Liam, with whom I felt comfortable sharing my personal stuff. Liam and I went everywhere together, and slowly Autumn and I got closer and closer. One day we just started dating. At that point in life, but since we had been friends for so long, I believed I would have found something if she were hiding it. Indeed, a few years later, we got married and I moved in with her. Also, for anyone wondering, Liam is still my best friend, is married, and lives close by, so my friendships do last. Anyway, coming back to the point, a few months after we got married, I started noticing that Autumn was actually a very suspicious person. She didn't try to hide it. Since I traveled a lot, it really scared her that someone was going to take me from her. Now, I'm not going to lie, it's kind of annoying to have a suspicious and paranoid wife. The way I look at it is that she cannot bear to be without me for even a minute, and that's why she wants to know where I am and what I'm doing at all times. I won't say that it's easy because, like I said, it gets really annoying at times, to the point where we have a fight because I didn't pick up her call when she got mad at me. But as long as you remember it's done out of love, you can have a good relationship. The person who's in my position needs to be very patient, otherwise it's simply not going to work. I genuinely think if it were anyone else, this marriage might not have lasted. So I sometimes joke with my wife that she is very lucky to have me, and she agrees. That's how my life normally goes. I leave for work, tell her where I'm traveling that week, and how many days, and she gets fake mad, but I make her laugh. But this week was different. A few days ago I found out that I was going to have to travel quite far for a client meeting. Obviously Autumn was not happy that I was leaving for 2 days. When she gets mad, she acts like a baby, and I have to try very hard to convince her. She knows I have to go, and does this because she knows I find it fun when I have to convince her. After promising to take her to her favorite place for dinner, she finally agreed, and we had a fun day. The next day I left, and later that evening I had the meeting and checked into my hotel. The next day, while I was preparing to leave, a coworker who had attended the meeting with me called to tell me that his ring was missing, and he was worried he dropped it in my car. He was from the nearby branch, so he had gone back to work. I told him I would check. I stopped at a gas station and started looking in every nook and cranny to find it. While I didn't find the ring, which my coworker later explained was dropped somewhere else, I did find something very interesting. Under a place where I would have never looked unless I was searching for a very tiny object, I found a very small device that looked suspiciously like a tracker. You know, the ones that give you the exact location of a person at all times. Yeah, those. I was guessing at first because it could not be anything else. Even though it was very deep below the seat, it could not have been dropped. It was very placed and secured, which really surprised me. Now, I would understand if I were a person of any importance or anything, but I'm not. My company always knows where I am because I go there for work, so there's no reason to track me. My wife knows where I am at all times, so she doesn't have a reason either. Other than those two, no one has access to my karaoke. Liam does, but he has even less reason to do something like this. So I looked up what it was to be sure, and it was definitely a tracker. After the initial surprise, the tracker really scared me because why would anyone want to track where I was? Since I knew it could not be anyone close to me, it felt like the tracker was placed by someone who wanted to harm me, my family, or my company, or do something equally bad. I know it sounds kind of stupid to assume something like that, but can you blame me? A tracker is not a normal thing to place on someone. After it scared me, I thought the best thing to do would be to trick the person tracking me, so I put the tracker on a cargo truck nearby that was going to Canada. Since I was scared of something happening, I decided not to return home and go back to the hotel for a day. My thinking was that if I was in some sort of immediate danger, I would be dragging my wife into it by going home. So I told the company I had some problems and would only return tomorrow, and told my wife. Then I drove around for a while to check if I was being followed by anyone. I used everything I had seen people do in movie situations like this because I never thought I would ever go through something like it. After a while I was sure that nobody was following me, so I went to the hotel to think. The most unbelievable part of all this was that it was somebody I didn't even know. How did they place the tracker? My car is not touched by anyone else but me, my wife, and my best friend. My wife is the one who cleans it always because, as I was thinking, my wife called to ask where I was. That was very weird because I had already texted her, and even though she was paranoid, normally she would simply understand. But out of nowhere she started doubting me, saying that I'm a liar, and kept asking where I was going. I found this to be very strange considering I had just thrown out a tracking chip. I had shown her on a video call that I was still in the hotel, and only then did she kind of believe me. Now, this made me really suspicious of her because it's a possibility that her suspicion towards me drove her to put a tracking chip in the car, and she is the only person I think could successfully do it without me noticing. On the other hand, it's also one of the most absurd things because I've never done anything to feed her suspicion, so she has no reason to go this far. My loving wife would never do this because she would think about how I would feel when I found out and realize that she didn't trust me one bit. Now, I don't like the idea of it being my wife, but I didn't come home with my car just to see what would happen. I kept it at one of my other friends' places and then went home. My wife got really mad at me and kept asking me to tell her the truth. She refused to believe that my car broke down and was in a garage for a few days. The thing that got me the most is that she did not even think about whether I was lying or not because I would believe that after all these years, but it was like she knew already that I was confounded to a point where she still had to not believe me. No matter how much I hate to think about it, this has made me very suspicious of her. But I still don't want to believe that she's capable of doing something like this. If it is her, then it means that she does not trust me at all, even after so many years of knowing everything about me. So guys, please tell me what I should do. Should I look into this secret, or should I just ask my wife? Or should I let it go because it's beginning to look like I'm not going to like what I find out? Update 1. Hey guys, so it's been 2 weeks since my last update, and yes, I did make a decision. I don't know if it's the right one or not, but unfortunately for me, it's looking more and more like my wife may be hiding something. I found out last week that she had deleted some messages from me. When I checked the phone bill, I saw that she had been texting someone constantly. I also found some suspicious contacts and decided to put a number into Google, only to find it was a fake number. So I did what any reasonable husband would do. I confronted her. I just told her what I found and asked her to be honest. She acted defensive at first, saying I was the one being shady, but eventually broke down and admitted that she had been feeling insecure for some time. She kept saying she had no reason to track me and only wanted to feel safe. Update 2. I'm really confused about the whole thing and now I don't know what to think. My wife and I had a long talk. I told her how serious this was for me, and she finally admitted she was texting a friend who had gone through a tough time. She said she felt bad for them and wanted to help. It made me feel better, but also raised more questions. Now I'm really not sure if I should just move on or keep digging. I feel stuck. Update 3. The days following my last update were a whirlwind of emotions, oscillating between confusion, hope, and frustration. Autumn had opened up about her feelings of insecurity, and while that helped alleviate some of my fears, it also left me with more questions than answers. I kept replaying our conversation in my head, trying to decipher her words and the tone of her voice. Was she being completely honest? I decided to give her some space to breathe. It felt like we were both walking on eggshells, and I didn't want to push her further away. Autumn had always been the type to internalize her feelings, often masking her insecurities with humor and sarcasm. I realized that perhaps I had overlooked her struggles over the years, focusing too much on my own issues with travel and work. One evening, after a long day at the office, I came home early. I found Autumn curled up on the couch, a blanket draped over her. The television was playing a rom-com, but she seemed lost in thought, her eyes glazed over. I could tell she was wrestling with something deeper, but I didn't want to pry. Instead, I sat next to her, offering a comforting presence without demanding answers. "Hey," I said softly, nudging her shoulder. "Mind if I join you?" She smiled weakly, and I could see the tension in her shoulders start to ease a little. Sure, just trying to escape reality for a bit. We sat together in silence, the kind of silence that spoke volumes. I reached for the remote and changed the channel to a documentary about the ocean, one of her favorite subjects. Gradually, the weight of our earlier conversation lifted, and I could see a flicker of her usual spark returning. "Remember when we went to that aquarium?" I asked, trying to spark a memory. "You spent hours just watching the jellyfish." Her eyes brightened at the recollection. "Oh God, yes, I was mesmerized. They looked like they were dancing." I chuckled, thankful to see her smile. "You made me promise to get one as a pet." "Maybe not the best idea," she laughed, and it felt good to hear her laughter again. Still, there was an undercurrent of tension in the air. That night as we got ready for bed, I took a leap of faith. "Can we talk more about what you've been feeling? I want to understand." She paused, her fingers brushing through her hair. "Honestly, it's been hard for me since you started traveling so much. I know it's for work, and I trust you, but sometimes I just feel like I'm not enough." Her vulnerability hit me like a punch to the gut. "Autumn, you are more than enough. I love you and I'm here for you no matter how far away I am." "I know," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "But the more you travel, the more my mind spirals. I worry about you. I worry about us. It's just that things haven't felt the same lately." "What do you mean?" She took a deep breath, and I could see the emotions swirling behind her eyes. "I don't know, sometimes it feels like we are living separate lives. You're off doing your thing, and I'm here, waiting for you to come home. I don't want to feel like a burden or a nag, but I just wish I had more of you." I felt a lump form in my throat. Her words resonated deeply, echoing the insecurities I harbored about our relationship. "I never wanted you to feel that way. I thought our little arguments were just part of us, but I see now how much it's affecting you." She nodded, a single tear escaping down her cheek. "It's just hard. And then with all the stuff with the tracker, it made me feel like I was losing control." I reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "I'm here, Autumn. I want us to be a team. We can tackle this together." That night we spoke until the early hours of the morning, peeling back layers of our relationship we had long left unexamined. I shared my fears of her potentially tracking me, and she recounted her feelings of isolation and insecurity. It felt raw and real, a cathartic release of pent-up emotions. Over the next few weeks, we worked on rebuilding that connection. We carved out time for each other despite my hectic schedule. I started bringing home small surprises, her favorite snacks, or a new book, anything to remind her that she was on my mind, even when I was miles away. Then, one evening, as we were sitting on the porch watching the sunset, Autumn surprised me. "I've been thinking about the whole tracker situation." I held my breath, unsure of where this would lead. "Yan, I think I might have overreacted," she confessed, her gaze focused on the horizon. "I let my insecurities cloud my judgment. I thought you were slipping away from me." "Autumn, you don't have to control anything. I'm not going anywhere," I reassured her. "But it's important for us to communicate. You need to trust me, and I need to trust you." She turned to face me, her eyes earnest. "I want to. I really do. I don't want to lose you. You won't. We're in this together." In that moment, I felt a shift in our relationship. It was as if we were shedding the fears and misunderstandings that had crept in between us. I could see the commitment in her eyes, a reflection of my own determination to make this work. As the weeks turned into months, she started attending yoga classes, exploring hobbies she had long neglected, and even joined a local book club. It was refreshing to see her engaging in activities that brought her joy. I also made it a point to include her in my work life whenever possible, sharing details about my travels and introducing her to my colleagues during video calls. While the trust wasn't rebuilt overnight, it felt like we were making strides. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was still something lurking beneath the surface. I often found myself revisiting the moments when I had caught her in odd little lies, like the time she claimed to be at a friend's house but was actually home. I didn't want to dwell on these thoughts, but they haunted me. Then came the day when I was home for the weekend, and Autumn received a call from someone named Jay. I watched as her demeanor shifted, her cheerful expression transformed into something guarded. She stepped into another room to talk, her voice low and careful. A sense of unease crept over me. When she returned, I could hardly contain my curiosity. "Who was that?" "Oh, just a friend from the book club," she said, but there was a hint of hesitation in her voice. I tried to push the feeling aside, but the seed of doubt was planted. As the evening wore on, I noticed Autumn's distracted behavior, checking her phone, avoiding eye contact. The tension between us began to build again, like a taut string ready to snap. "Is everything okay?" I asked gently, but she brushed it off, insisting she was just tired. That night I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. Could it be that she was hiding something? After everything we had worked through, could I be falling back into that pit of insecurity? I wanted to believe in her, but the thought of her slipping away again felt like a shadow looming over our progress. Eventually, sleep took me, but I awoke early the next morning, heart racing. I knew I had to confront the issue before it festered. As Autumn brewed coffee in the kitchen, I approached her, trying to keep my tone light. "Hey, can we talk about Jay? I just want to make sure we're on the same page." She paused, and I could see her eyes widen slightly. "Jay, he's just a friend." "Right, but you seemed a bit off when you took the call. I don't want to feel like I'm prying, but I just need some reassurance." Autumn sighed, her shoulders drooping slightly. "I get it, Ash, but I promise there's nothing to worry about. I've just been trying to reconnect with people, and Jay has been supportive." "Supportive in what way?" Her frustration was palpable. "He's a friend who understands what I'm going through. Can't I talk to someone about my feelings without it raising red flags?" I stepped back, realizing that my insecurities were resurfacing. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to come off as accusatory. I just want us to be open with each other." She nodded, but the tension lingered. "I know, and I appreciate that. I just wish you could trust me a little more." As the conversation shifted, I felt a pang of guilt. I didn't want to repeat past mistakes, but the feeling of unease was hard to shake. The next few days were filled with a fragile peace. We made plans to spend more time together, but in the back of my mind the questions about Jay lingered. Eventually, I decided I needed to take a step back and focus on my own growth as well. I began to engage in activities that had once brought me joy, spending more time with Liam, taking long bike rides, and even picking up a few new hobbies. It was refreshing to take a break from the chaos of work and focus on self-care. I hoped that by doing this, I would regain some of my own confidence and, in turn, trust Autumn more fully. But every now and then my mind would wander back to the call with Jay, and I felt that familiar knot of anxiety in my stomach. In the weeks that followed, our relationship continued to ebb and flow. We had moments of deep. Autumn's enthusiasm for her book club and yoga helped her regain some of her confidence, which was encouraging to see. Yet the question of Jay lingered like an unanswered riddle. One night, as I was preparing for a work trip, I noticed Autumn texting again, her expression distant and unfocused. I bit my tongue, debating whether to bring it up, but I wanted to avoid unnecessary conflict. As I packed my bag, I felt a pang of uncertainty. Was I being paranoid? Or was there truly something more at play? My mind was racing, and I had to remind myself that Autumn was trying to rebuild her sense of self just like I was. The next morning I left for my trip. As the plane ascended, I found myself staring out the window, the clouds rolling beneath us. I took a deep breath. Through all the uncertainty and trials, one thing remained clear: our love was still worth fighting for. And as long as we were willing to communicate and confront our fears together, there was hope for a brighter future. Final update. As the weeks turned into months, I found myself, each time I returned home from a trip, the tension between Autumn and me felt lighter, as if we were shedding the layers of uncertainty we had wrapped around ourselves. We both knew that rebuilding trust was a journey, not a destination. One evening, after a particularly long week of meetings and deadlines, I returned home to find Autumn in the kitchen, humming to herself as she chopped vegetables for dinner. The aroma of garlic and herbs filled the air, and a wave of warmth washed over me. It was a reminder of the simple joys we had once shared before the storm of our insecurities. "Hey, chef!" I greeted her with a grin, slipping my arms around her waist. "Smells amazing. Just trying to keep us healthy," she teased, leaning back into me. "Plus, I missed you." That simple admission made my heart swell. We shared a quiet dinner, the conversation flowing easily, peppered with laughter and stories from my travels. It felt like the old days, and I reveled in the comfort of her presence. After dinner, as we settled onto the couch with a movie, I decided to take a leap. "I've been thinking a lot about what we discussed about trust and openness. I want to make sure we keep this momentum going." Autumn turned to me, her expression earnest. "Me too. I know it's easy to fall back into old patterns, but I really want us to communicate more honestly." I nodded, taking her hand in mine. "And if there's anything you need to share about Jay, I want to hear it. I don't want any secrets between us." She hesitated, her brow furrowing slightly. "Jay has been a good friend, but it's nothing more than that. I promise I was just looking for someone to talk to, someone who understood what I was feeling. But I realize now that I should have communicated that better." A sense of relief washed over me. "Thank you for being honest. I just want to support you, and I want you to feel safe sharing your feelings with me." Autumn smiled, squeezing my hand. "I appreciate that, and honestly, I'm working on trusting myself." We spent the next hour discussing our individual journeys, how we could better support each other while navigating our own insecurities. It was a raw, honest conversation, and I could feel the air between us lighten with each word spoken. Over the next few months, I was more transparent about my travels, sharing every detail I could, while Autumn continued to pursue her interests, diving deeper into her hobbies and friendships. We explored the city together, finding new restaurants, attending local events, and even taking a weekend trip to the mountains. One afternoon, as we hiked a scenic trail, we paused, taking in the beauty of the landscape. Autumn, I know we've had our share of ups and downs, but standing here with you, I can't help but feel hopeful about our future. I love you, and I'm committed to making this work." She turned to me, her eyes glistening with emotion. "I love you too, Ash. I never want to go through that uncertainty again. But I believe we are stronger now we are learning to communicate and be open, and that's everything." We embraced, the warmth of our connection enveloping us like the sunlight breaking through the clouds. In that moment I felt the weight of our past struggles lifting, replaced by a renewed sense of partnership and hope. As we continued our hike, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were finally moving forward. We both knew that the journey of rebuilding trust would continue to unfold, but we were ready to face whatever came our way together. With each passing day, our love grew deeper, fortified by our commitment to open communication and mutual understanding. As we embraced this new chapter, I knew that no matter the challenges that lay ahead, we would face them side by side, hand in hand, ready to explore the beautiful landscape of our lives together.